She wasn't a witch, anything but. Aunt Ada at age 83. Her name was Ada Fleet, and I loved her dearly, and I corresponded with her until she died in 1963.
She looks very pretty there.
Well, I'm a good photographer. I didn't take this picture, but anyway. The house was very old, as I said, and it had no modern conveniences of any kind. She took us up to the bedroom, where a bed similar to this, a four-poster bed, occupied the place of honor. She said, well, the problem is that I have an evacuee now, but he's gone back to London for a few days. You can stay tonight if you like, or maybe a couple of nights until he comes back. Well, I stayed for 4 years, because he never came back. Jack Tambini was his name, as I recall. I never met him, but I played with all of his toys. I left him out. We didn't take a bath very often, because this was Aunt Ada's bath. She did have a bathroom. This is, the idea of this thing in the back here, its height, is to keep the draft out from your back while you're taking a bath. It's tin, and when it wasn't being used, it hung up in the wash house. We didn't take a bath very often. I think maybe every 2 or 3 weeks we took a bath, maybe.
How big was that?
Well, it's just big enough to sit in with your bottom down and your knees up against your chin. It's called a hip bath. Now, there was no indoor plumbing, and it's not a coffee cup, in case you don't recognize it. Yeah, it's called a chamber pot. It's also called a Gerry, which is the reason I would never answer to Gerry as a kid, because they called me Gerry under the bed, which I deeply resented, and my family still called me Gerald. I would not answer to them. So we had one of these under the bed. We did not have electricity, and we didn't have a radio, but we used to go next door and listen to the radio sometimes. They didn't have electricity either, but they used batteries in it, which were wet cells, a lead-acid battery. It's a glass bottle filled with acid, and it charges the radio, and periodically they take it down to the garage, not a garage, it's a garage, and they would charge it up. That's how we knew what was going on. Aunt Ada had this coal stove. Actually, it was nowhere near as modern as this, in which was the source of cooking and heating. She had no running water, but there was a faucet just like this at the next door neighbor's house. This was a big improvement over the well which they had previously. You've all seen the wishing wells with a roof on top. They had one of those. You know, one you throw the bucket down and crank it up. So this was a great deal of improvement. And she'd fill up this bucket of water periodically and take it into the pantry. And that was our water supply. It sounds almost inconceivable that this was only 100 miles from London. She had 2 of these oil lamps, and when it was bedtime, we took a candle and go up to bed. She also had a harmonium. Ladies know what a harmonium is? It's an organ that you pump with your feet. And one day she was playing with it and a couple of mice ran out. So that was fun. She also, on the wall was a warming pan. You know what warming pans are? Okay. Anybody not know? Okay, everybody knows. We never used this one, but she had a much better idea. This is what she used. She put the brick in the oven, heated it for several hours, wrapped it in a towel, and this was to warm the bed, because there was no heat. Now, it doesn't get that cold in England, but it's cold enough in the wintertime that you want your sheets warm. In East Anglia, where this village is, there is a great deal of chalk and flint, which means that millions and millions of years ago this area was under the sea, because chalk forms under the sea. And a lot of buildings are made with chalk and flint walls. Now, at the end of the pathway, which was cinders, she used to throw the cinders on the pathway, you know, for somewhere to get rid of them and also to make it somewhere to walk. There was an outhouse which was made of chalk and splint. It was built over a hole in the ground, and you go there to do your business. Well, one morning we went out in the winter time and it had collapsed. It totally fell down, looked like it'd been bombed. But fortunately, there was a spare one next door that looked like that. It was made out of wood, except there was no, you know, we didn't have this mirror, this moon in the door, and it was a bucket that was used. We didn't have any toilet paper. That's for sissies. We used rocks. No, we didn't. We used torn up newspaper. She didn't have a newspaper, so she got the next door neighbor's newspaper for toilet paper. And then periodically this had to be dumped in the cesspool. Not a very fun job. This is a typical scene in Fordham. Now Martha and I will be in Fordham next May again. I go there every number of years. There's many thatched roof cottages. This is the church. This is the Church of England church. And our house was up here, one block up here. I'll show more views of that church. Occasionally my family came to see me. This actually was me in 1941. This is Hetty, my sister, Norman, my brother. Norman left me when he was 14 because 14 was the school leaving age. He went back home to go to work. This picture was taken in 1941. It was taken by my brother Toby, who next day joined the Royal Air Force. It's very agricultural for them. All they did was they were farmhands, and they grew a lot of sugar beet. Sugar beet in England is made for using sugar. They don't use sugar cane. That was the principal, one of the principal crops. This is an actual picture I got off the internet of the main street in Fordham. Now the main street is the main street. There's maybe two, three streets intersecting, crossing it, and that's it. That's Fordham. And I'll show some more pictures of the same street. I want to tell you about this house here. In 1992, I think it was, Martha and I took a trip to England, and I wanted to go to the village. I'd been writing to one of the guys in the village. My friend Phil, who is my best friend, still in England, drove us to the village. We stopped outside this house, because across here was the boarding house. As we got out of the car, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, Gerry Wiseman." This was the guy I'd be corresponding to. That's his house. Across the street was the candy store and the barber shop. And it was too small to get a proper haircut. The barber put a plank across the chair, and I used to sit on this plank. The cost of a haircut was roughly 5 cents. It wasn't a very good haircut, and I didn't get a tip. Fordham is so small. At the time, there were 2 grocery stores, 1 butcher, I think 2 bakers, the post office, 1 gas station. That was it. There was no library, there was no movies, there was no bank, there was nothing. There was a lot of pubs, and there was the Church of England church, the Methodist church, the Primitive Baptist church, the Congregational chapel that Aunt Ada attended. Was it now the United Church of Christ, or they changed? I don't know what.